Sometimes, I wondered if the world even noticed people like me anymore, the kind who work 16-hour days and still go to sleep hungry. The kind who smile through the pain because falling apart isn't a luxury they can afford. As I reached the corner by the parking garage, I saw him, this man in a sleek black car, parked beneath the flickering street lamp. He looked like he'd just stepped out of a magazine. Dark suit, clean-cut jawline, and hands that had definitely never scrubbed dishes to pay rent. He was on his phone, calm, maybe waiting for someone important. I stood there for a moment, shivering, battling with my pride. I didn't want to ask. I didn't want to look desperate. But I was. I walked up to the passenger side, hesitated, then knocked on the window. He looked up, surprised, and rolled it down halfway. "Hi," I began, voice cracking. "I know this is crazy, and I promise I'm not dangerous or anything. I really need a ride. My car broke down and my son's daycare is closing, and if I don't get there, they'll charge me extra, and I can't afford that." There was a long pause. His eyes searched mine. Not with pity, but curiosity. And maybe, something softer. Then he nodded. "Just once." "Get in," he said simply. No judgment. No hesitation. I slid into the seat, soaked and shivering. He turned up the heat without a word. I didn't even know his name. I had no idea that this stranger, the one who just offered me a ride out of pure kindness, was one of the wealthiest men in the city, and that ride was about to change everything. Max was already asleep by the time I got to the daycare. I carried his tiny body in my arms through the rain, cradling him like I used to when he was a baby. His little hand clutched my uniform shirt as he mumbled in his sleep, "You smell like pancakes, Mommy." I laughed softly. Despite everything, that night, as the stranger, Daniel, he finally told me, drove us home in silence, I found myself glancing at him, wondering who this man was. There was something about him. He wasn't overly friendly, but he wasn't cold either. Just calm. Grounded. Like he existed in a world far away from mine. Maybe it was the warmth of the car, or the rare kindness from a stranger, but I found myself talking. "I used to dream of becoming a chef," I said, almost as if I were telling the rain outside. "Not just flipping pancakes at a diner. I mean, real food. Stories told through flavor, you know." He glanced at me. "So what happened?" I looked down at Max, who was still sleeping, his mouth slightly open. "I got pregnant. His father didn't stick around. My parents disowned me. And dreams don't pay the bills." He nodded. Not with pity. With understanding. "Do you miss it?" he asked. "Every single day." He didn't say anything for a while. Just drove quietly, as if letting the silence speak for both of us. When we reached my apartment complex, a run-down building with flickering hallway lights and chipped paint, I mumbled, "Thank you again." "You really didn't have to." "I know," he said softly. "I used to believe that rock bottom had a limit. That once you hit it, things could only get better. But life has a cruel way of showing you just how deep the bottom really goes." It was a Thursday evening, cold and soaked with rain, and I was sprinting down 7th Street, my shoes soaked through, my jacket clinging to my skin like a second, freezing layer. My car had broken down, again. The third time this month. I just finished my shift at the diner, 2 hours late because the lunch rush turned into dinner, and now I was running to pick up Max before the daycare closed. Max is 5. My entire world. The only reason I still breathe some days. As I ran, dodging puddles and stinging raindrops, I felt the weight of everything pressing down on me. My chest was tight, not from the sprinting, but from the suffocating anxiety that seemed to live there permanently now. Rent was due in 4 days. I had $38 in my checking account. My phone was dead, then gave me a faint smile. "Good night, Emily." I watched as he drove off, the taillights disappearing into the rain. It wasn't until I was taking off my wet clothes that I noticed it, his wallet, wedged between the seat cushions where I'd set my purse. My heart stopped. I debated for a moment. Curiosity tugged at me, whispering that someone like him had to be important. But I pushed it aside. I opened the wallet only to find his ID and a business card. Daniel H. Morgan, CEO, Morgan Enterprises. My jaw dropped. I stared at the card like it had just grown wings. Morgan Enterprises was everywhere, hotels, restaurants, even the grocery chains in our neighborhood. That he wasn't just rich. He was the Daniel Morgan that I could have called the media. I could have posted it online. But instead, I tucked the wallet into my purse and made a decision that I'd return it myself. Quietly, because people like him don't cross paths with people like me. Not unless there's a reason. What I didn't know was that Daniel already knew who I was. He'd seen me before, and this ride wasn't the first time he'd been watching me fight to survive. The next morning, I brushed Max's hair with my fingers and gave him a peanut butter sandwich for breakfast, again. He smiled anyway. He always did. Like my love was enough to feed him, even when the fridge was almost empty. With trembling hands and a heart pounding like a drum, I took the subway across town, clutching Daniel's wallet like it was made of glass. When I walked into the gleaming skyscraper that said Morgan Enterprises, the first thing I noticed was how out of place I looked. Everyone was dressed like they walked out of a catalog, heels clicking, watches glinting, voices crisp. I stood there in my worn jeans and rain-damp jacket, hair frizzing at the edges, like a stain on the marble floor. The receptionist barely looked up. "Do you have an appointment?" I'm just returning something. For Daniel Morgan. She raised an eyebrow. "Mr. Morgan doesn't take drop-ins. It's his wallet. He left it in my car." Her eyes narrowed. His car. Before I could explain, I felt a change in the air behind me. "Emily." I turned. Daniel stood there, suited, sharp, and smiling. Not just politely. Genuinely. The receptionist straightened instantly, her cheeks flushing. "I tried to find a way to return this without bothering anyone," I said, holding out the wallet. My voice cracked, not from nerves, but from the way every eye in that lobby had judged me before they even knew my name. Daniel took it with a soft smile. "You could have kept it. I don't steal." "I know," he said. And the way he looked at me, like I was the only person in that marble kingdom worth noticing. "Come. Let me walk you out." But even as he escorted me out, that feeling of not belonging clung to my skin like sweat. My cheeks burned. My hands shook. I left quickly, mumbling a thank you, needing to disappear. That night, I was 20 minutes late to my shift at the diner. Traffic had been brutal, and Max had spilled juice on my only clean shirt. My manager didn't even let me put my apron on. "You're done here, Emily," she snapped. "You can't keep using single mom as a crutch." I stood there, in the back hallway of that greasy diner, while she tossed my last paycheck on the counter like trash. My chest collapsed in on itself. At home, Max found me sitting on the floor, crying silently, my arms around my knees. "Mommy?" I tried to smile but failed. "Maybe the world wasn't made for people like us," I whispered. "No matter how hard we try." Meanwhile, across the city, Daniel sat in his office, eyes locked on the building's security footage. He watched the receptionist's smug sneer. Her dismissive tone. The way Emily shrank under it, his jaw tightened. He tapped a file open on his laptop. Employee records, Clover Ridge Hospitality Group, owned by Morgan Enterprises, the same group that owned the diner that had just fired her. He closed the laptop calmly, but his mind was made up. A week passed after I lost my second job. I was surviving on canned soup and quiet tears, doing mental gymnastics to figure out how to stretch one paycheck into rent, groceries, and Max's field trip fee. I was folding his clothes on the couch when my phone buzzed, unknown number. I almost didn't answer. But something told me to. "Emily." "It's Daniel." I froze. For a second, I thought maybe I was hallucinating from stress. "I never really got to thank you," he said, calm as ever. "Would you let me buy you a coffee?" I stared at the ceiling, unsure if the universe was playing a joke. But Max looked up from his coloring book and smiled. "Is that the nice car man, Mommy?" That was enough. We met the next morning at a small cafe tucked between the towering glass buildings of his world. I wore the cleanest blouse I had and pulled my hair back, wishing I looked like someone who belonged there. Daniel stood when I walked in. "You look great," he said, no hint of pity in his voice. Just kindness that we talked. At first, about Max. Then about food. Dreams. Quiet things, then he said it. "I have an opening. Entry level, but in our culinary division. Admin support, but you'd be around the kitchens." I blinked. "Why me?" He stirred his coffee once. Twice. Then looked up. "You remind me of my mother," he said. "She raised me alone. Worked 3 jobs. People underestimated her too." I stared at my coffee, unsure. "What's the catch?" "No catch. Just a chance. You deserve one." I didn't believe it. Not at first. But a few days later, I walked through the doors of Morgan Enterprises again, this time with a badge. The job wasn't glamorous. I made copies. Managed schedules. Took notes. But I watched. I learned. I soaked up every detail in the test kitchens and meetings. And slowly, I started giving suggestions. Quiet ones. Until one day, my idea for a local ingredients menu made it into a presentation. Some of the other employees snickered behind my back. "The charity case from the diner," they whispered. One woman rolled her eyes when I handed in my draft for a regional food concept, but Daniel noticed. He always did. "I read your draft," he told me in passing one day. "Smart. Real. Keep going." Those 2 words, "keep going," landed like an earthquake in my chest, and for the first time in a long time, I started to believe maybe I wasn't just surviving anymore, maybe I was starting to become me again. The invitation said, "Formal attire required." I stared at it, heart pounding. A company gala. Me, I didn't own anything that wasn't thrifted or stained. I was about to decline when I got a knock at the door. A sleek black box sat on my welcome mat. Inside was the most beautiful deep navy gown I had ever seen. Soft, flowing, timeless. No note, just my name on the tag that I didn't need a note to know it was from him. The ballroom was glowing with golden light, full of elegance I'd only seen in movies. I stepped in, heart racing. Heads turned. Conversations paused. For once, no one saw a waitress or a single mom. They saw a woman. "Is that Emily?" I heard someone whisper. "She looks incredible." I found Daniel near the bar, looking unfairly handsome in a classic black suit. When he saw me, he didn't just look, he stared. Like he was seeing something he didn't know he needed. "You look," he started, that I raised an eyebrow. "Decent for a charity case?" He shook his head. "Like the woman I haven't been able to stop thinking about." We danced. And for a moment, I forgot the years of struggle, the late rent notices, the pitying glances. For a moment, I was just a woman. With a man who looked at me like I was the only one in the room. Later, I stepped out for air. I needed to breathe. That's when I overheard 2 executives behind the marble column. "She's his new obsession," one scoffed. "Just like the last one he left at the altar." My breath caught. "What?" the other said. "Didn't you know? Daniel was engaged 2 years ago." Cold feet. Crushed her. They laughed. I didn't. Back at the apartment, I couldn't sleep. Every kindness, every compliment, every glance felt poison now. Was I just a placeholder? A rebound? The next morning, I wrote him a letter. "Thank you for everything. But I need to find who I am, on my own. Maybe I was just a project. Maybe not. But I can't survive being someone's second heartbreak." I left my badge on my desk and walked out. That I didn't cry this time. Not because it didn't hurt, but because I finally knew I deserved something real, and I wasn't going to settle for anything less. A week passed. 7 long days without texts, without flowers, without explanations. That I told myself it was for the best. That walking away had been strength, not fear. But when Max fell asleep, I'd find myself replaying every word, every look. Wondering if I'd misunderstood everything, or if I'd just been afraid to believe it was real. Then, one rainy afternoon, there was a knock that I opened the door, and there he was. Daniel. In a tailored suit this time. No polished charm. Just a man standing in the rain, holding nothing but truth in his eyes. I didn't come to fix anything, he said. I just need you to know why I left that woman. I didn't speak. I couldn't. She was wonderful, kind, but I didn't love her. I thought marriage would fix the emptiness. Instead, I ran. Not because of her. But because I didn't think I deserved something real. He looked down, almost ashamed. And then I met you. And I realized, I wasn't afraid of love. I was afraid of someone seeing me. The real me. And somehow, you did, without even trying. Tears welled up, uninvited. I'm not asking for a fairy tale, he continued. No grand promises. No rescue. I'm just asking for a second chance to be the man who sees you, the way you deserve. I swallowed hard. I don't want to be someone's project, Daniel. I don't want to be saved. I want to be seen. All of me. The mess, the fight, the dreams I gave up on. He stepped closer. You've always been seen. You just forgot how to look in the mirror. And then, he reached out, gently, like I might break if he touched me too fast. I let him, and I kissed him, not because I needed him, but because I wanted to choose him. A small yawn broke the moment. Max had woken up and wandered to the doorway, rubbing his eyes. Daniel knelt. Hey, buddy. Max blinked up at him, then smiled and wrapped his arms around his neck. That was it. No fireworks. No orchestras. Just 3 people in the rain, learning to be whole again. I asked a stranger for a ride that day. I thought I was looking for help, but maybe I found a way home. Have you ever met someone who saw you more clearly than you saw yourself?